The South African chapter of the International Association of Women has spoken out strongly against gender-based violence after the murder of Free State Magistrate Mamello Thamae. Her body was discovered in her car boot in Lesotho after the pair were reported missing from their home in Heilbron in the Free State. Her husband, Mokgotlong, was arrested after the vehicle was traced to a guest house in Mokgotlong. Executive Director at Access Chapter 2, Steve Letsike, joins us now. Steve, thank you for making time for us this afternoon. First of all, what do you understand around the circumstances of the magistrate's murder?
Look, thank you so much for the invitation, and really happy heritage to South Africans. It's quite worrying because when you look at the details around, the case, the magistrate judge went missing and was reported missing, already, on the 22nd, and that was notified to the police service, with the intention of when was, the judge and the husband last seen, and in terms of tracking of the car that has left their homestead, driving towards Lesotho airport, these are the details that we have until then that, after tracking, after the missing was reported, was that they found the husband at the guest house, and who has directed them to where the body is, in the car. And that is the only details that we know about, this matter. And we're hoping that more should be revealed, because if the husband could indicate, where the body can be found, clearly there is, elements of, what we perceive as, intimate partner violence that has led to murder and kidnapping, of course, as the charges are displayed.
Yeah, and this kind of intimate partner violence is not so rare in South Africa. This is a daily for so many women, and I see even more female judges have come out to speak against the state of gender-based violence cases. They too have been shocked and shaken by this murder, but this is what we often see in this country. Is more being done, do you feel, to raise awareness, to teach from government side at the very least, because it's a societal problem? But government's responsibility, are they doing enough?
If you look at the statistics for South Africa versus the statistics, for the global data, you have up to 50% of, intimate partner violence. And this is really concerning that at least, 1 in 3 women gets violated by what we perceive as a lover or partner or husband or in fact partner for that matter, so that it's not only just limited to heterosexual. But what is concerning, if you look at the rest of the world, is up to 25%. So you can actually see this figure as a concerning element for South Africa. This is not new for South Africa because we know that society has a problem, and it has to deal with the extreme extent of which women are violated. Women in all their diversity experience this high level of violence, that is getting worse. Now, in terms of whether our government, is doing better or so, I think we can do better. President Ramaphosa had launched the National Strategic Plan that responds to gender-based violence and femicide. And it's exactly the cases like this that says the cases are pretty much closer, and it's pretty much concerning that that whatever that we're doing, it's at a level where there is response. We need to actually do the prevention work much more harder, because one more death is so much enough. And I think government can only do to an extent. Society has to come to play here, where attitude, toxic masculinity, homophobia, violence, gender, and patriarchy must be the one that we actually interrogate. So government can do better. All other departments, because whether you're speaking about, police, social development, education, everybody has got a role. But same as private sector, same as society, the churches and all other members of civil society and communities can actually do better. We are doing so much already at a very little resources. We spend 45 billion responding to gender-based violence in this country annually. This is a lot of money that should be creating jobs and improving our economy. But yet, every single day, a man sees it within themselves that they've got much more power to take away and violate another person. That's extreme, and that's what needs to be dealt with.
Yeah, and that's the thing about gender-based violence and these intimate partner, violence. More and more people are being killed by their loved ones, and this affects people from across the board. Whether you're in the suburbs, in the villages, you're educated, you're less educated. I mean, women are just not safe. You spoke about prevention work, and we need to focus more on that. What do you think that entails?
Look, given the fact that the range of violence acts are quite diverse, it's not only just about sexual or physical, it's also emotional and economic, violence, psychological violence that we have to really untangle and deal with. Now, part of prevention, if we address the issues of toxic masculinity, we actually know what patriarchy has done in society. How do we get our community to unlearn, heal, and actually also deal and focus on men and boys? You've got programs of Brothers for Life, Takuani Rime, that have actually been mobilizing men to say, men, you can be better. We stand with you. We actually want to know what is the challenge. And there's no reason big enough to actually say that you can actually not take a decision to say consciously, I am not going to be violating the next person. I'd rather walk away. So we actually then have to speak about building resilience, building healing, but also knowing what consequences of violence are. I don't think we are really dealing with consequences in the harshest manner, because taking away somebody's life is an extreme violation. While we say there's a right to life, but you cannot necessarily then say, people must just look at a just approach and go to prison just like that. We really need to take much more harsher sentence where people understand the consequences are not just the prison sentence, but they are much harsher.
And how harsh can we go? President Cyril Ramaphosa in the past, through some of his cabinet ministers like the Justice Minister, have put through some bills in Parliament that can respond to that issue of consequence management. From what you have seen in what that bill proposes, is that harsh punishment or harsh consequence sufficient?
Well, as civil society and organizations and various stakeholders have made submissions into that bill, we have contributed to it to make sure that it really takes into consideration, what are some of the harsher sentences. One of the key things that President Ramaphosa did is to make sure that people do not get bail. I think that's number one, because a lot of people get out from prison with bail that is much low, and those taking away the bail is one important thing. Secondly, much longer sentence, and we must actually say that people are not even entitled to parole. We must actually then make sure that they are not necessarily getting all this easy way out, to make sure that they have an easier way. I know it's a very kind of controversial aspect, but really, to be honest, at what cost is these elements of comfort where people violate others and people are in prison for their own good? So we need to really reflect, and when we say harsher sentences, we are not saying bring back the death penalty. We know some of the arguments have been brought to that level. Some have gone to an extent, when you look at sexual violence, to say that maybe we need to also apply rules around, how you reduce people's hormonal elements of those kind of experience, so that they cannot continue to rape others. So it's really looking at options that can work for the public, and it does not really take away the element of people not knowing what the consequence management is.
All right. Steve Letsike, thank you for joining us for this chat this afternoon.